What's up everybody and welcome back to 4K Motoring. I'm Chris and behind me are the new lights that we have for our Ducati Multistrada V4S, the Denali D7 Pros. So we have some new lights for our 2022 Multistrada V4S. Again, getting ready for our trip from Raleigh, North Carolina down to Austin, Texas for the upcoming MotoGP race here in 2025. I think it's shaping up to be quite an exciting season. Because of that, I've done some modifications to this bike. If you guys have been following along, the latest change is ordering these Denali D7 Pro lights with our CANsmart system. Let's talk about it. To start this off, I want to say that the Multistrada V4S has some pretty impressive lights from the factory. The headlights that are on it are LED. It has dual beam, both low beam and high beam. The DRL system I think is woefully inadequate, and I hate that it defaults to it during the daytime, but that is a Ducati choice. And it does have the cornering lights that as soon as you lean into a corner, lights turn on and illuminate the side. All those things are pretty impressive when you're on the road during normal riding, but I've definitely found some limitations. Namely, mountain riding, a lot of twisty riding where you're leaning back and forth, elevation changes. That's where I find that these lights really have limitations. They're definitely DOT approved. They have a very sharp cutoff to where they don't blind people, which is good for riding on the road, I guess, but it really limits your ability to see what's around you and prepare for what's up ahead at night. I went ahead and got the Ducati factory fog lights when I ordered this bike, and this is the first time I got those on the Multistrada. My last one did not have them. And they definitely light up the road a little bit closer to you, which is nice for a little bit of peace of mind, a little bit of wider, lower light. But that still doesn't do a whole lot for those high speeds, twisty corners, elevation changes at night. Since I installed the crash bars on the bike, I've been able to mount some additional lights pretty easily. And the first ones I tried were these Amazon lights. I think they were about 30 or 40 bucks when I bought them. Had a full wiring harness meant for motorcycles, and I really like these. For as inexpensive as they are, they had a very wide, flat beam. And that was perfect for riding. It put a light down on the road pretty far ahead of you and gave a pretty wide field of view, but still had that low and high cutoff so it wasn't blinding people. You could aim it pretty well. I then had a company reach out to me called Colite, and they sent me their D09 lights. These are 9 LED lights. They look a lot like the Lone Rider lights that you can buy. And overall, these are exceptionally bright. Now, one thing I liked about the Amazon lights was that they had a dedicated toggle switch on the handlebars, and whenever the bike was on, they just turned on automatically. They were really good in the daytime. They provided a lot of visibility for the bike, and at nighttime, they weren't overly bright and didn't blind people. I didn't have people flashing their high beams at me, so it was a really good balance. When I switched to the Colite, during the day, these things were incredibly visible. There is no way that anybody wouldn't see you on the road driving with these things on during the day. Problem is, at night, there was no way to dim them. These have a DRL function, which is just a little outline kind of for style, not really for driving at all, and then the full beam. So when driving at night, you had to have these things off if there's any other traffic on the road, or you would blind people, or on full beam. If you have to turn the lights off while you're riding, they don't really do a whole lot for visibility. So I think that's one thing these lacked. They didn't give you many options and were maybe too bright. Enter the Denali D7 Pro. Now these lights are 4.5-inch lights just like the Colites. They are very similar in build, very similar in size, but they have a couple tricks up their sleeve. First, and quite simply, these lights have dual circuits, which means of the 7 lights on here, the 7 different LEDs, the center 3 are controlled separately from the outside 4. That gives you some options, especially with their little snap-on X-Lens system that comes with a couple different colors in the box, to do a couple different things with these lights. That combined with their CANsmart system for Ducati allows you to custom program these lights to work with your bike. No additional buttons or circuits or anything like that are needed. It is literally one controller. You can connect it to your computer to program it, and then these things work with low beams, high beams, day, night, turn signals, hazard lights, horn, you name it. These things have a function with that. So ultimately, I've been trying to find the best light to provide me with the best daytime visibility while maintaining the best nighttime, both low beam and high beam visibility, so I can see, provide a little extra fill light at night, and when the light really goes away and I want it to be daytime in front of me, I have that option. With these D7 Pro lights from Denali, I can tell you in the 2 nights that I've ridden with them so far, wow, I think they're perfect. So in the box, it does come with the snap-on X-Lens system right there in the middle for those center 3 lights that I use as my daytime running lights. There's a clear, a selective yellow, and a full amber one. I went with the full amber because I think that's going to complement the capability of this light the best for me. I have it set where those 3 lights come on anytime the bike is on. When the bike is on, those 3 lights will be on. Daytime, they're about 80% brightness. Nighttime, they drop down to about 40% brightness. And what that gives me is really incredible visibility during the day. These things are super easy to see, they stand out, and they get the attention of everybody on the road. And at night, at about 40%, I'm not blinding people, I don't have anybody flashing me, and I don't feel like they're too bright, but I get a good amount of fill light everywhere that my stock headlights don't cover. These provide a lot of adequate extra lighting, so I have a better picture of what's around me and are a little bit more confident riding. When I get away from traffic, that's when it changes. When I hit my high beams, both the Ducati high beams come on and the full beam, all 7 LEDs on both lights come on at 100% brightness, and the amount of light this thing puts out in front of you is frankly impressive. There's not a single hotspot like the Colites had. There's not one single spot lens that creates just a circle. I really didn't find that useful at all while driving. I don't think a totally round light is great for driving. These things put out a very forward view of lighting and fairly narrow, but not pinpoint. And because of that, I get a really overwhelming amount of light in front of me and decent fill lighting of everything around me that gives me confidence at night to ride this bike hard. So if you guys have seen my handlebars before, I used to have a switch right here for my old lights. Well, that is gone because I don't need it anymore. My handlebars are just as they were from stock, minus the phone holder, and everything is controlled by the stock controls of the motorcycle, which is pretty cool. Now I'll pull this bike apart just a second so you can see it. Really, there's only 3 pieces you have to remove on each side to make this work. The first is this outer panel. There's 2 T25 bolts on it that have to be removed, as well as a 4mm bolt right up here, hex bolt, and this side piece comes right off. Now behind that is one that's kind of a pain. There are 2 more 4mm hex bolts that hold on this piece with the vents in it. That's a little problematic because that has a bunch of air channels in it that you have to keep lined up. Particularly the rubber one for this channel right back here is really difficult to get back in line, so be careful with that. This back one here just has a bolt up here, a 4mm bolt there, as well as a 4mm bolt right in front. And this panel comes off. There are a couple snap clips, 1 here and 2 on the big panel, and these panels will come off. There is a channel you can run wires behind it, not a lot of room, but a little room onto the seat. And from there, this CANsmart system is plug and play. So under my seat might look a little different than yours. I do have these big thick wires here that go to my battery tender, and I do have some little wires going to my Innov K6 dash cam system that is routed under there. I have a relay built into the back before I got this CANsmart system for my Phoenix T3 strobing brake light. And now I have my CANsmart system with all these wires. Now the CANsmart is pretty small itself. It has the full wiring harness. It plugs into the power by itself and just has its own little connectors. The only problem I have with it, and it's a pretty minor problem, is that these connectors are freaking huge. And when you have all of them together on a bike like this, it's pretty tightly packed, it does make it difficult to find a spot to get them into. I've just been routing them under here. It plugs into the CAN bus right here that they use for the diagnostics. Same thing, plugs right into that, gets all the data from the bike, and is pretty easy to use. Okay, so here is the Hex EasyCAN system, the Denali branded CANsmart, same system, rebranded, and this is what it looks like. So I have each light on its own circuit. There are 4 potential circuits. This CANsmart has 4 different inputs on it, and I have them all used up because I have no additional lighting that needs it right now. Currently I have it connected to my computer via micro USB, not USB-C in 2025. I think that's a little bit of an oversight. But that gives me a couple of options. I have set up a primary pair and a secondary pair. Each one, right light 2, left light 2, right light 1, left light 1. Each one has its own pair. You can see which colors are with which pair, and we can see how they're set up. So currently I have the center lights, just those middle 3, set to be During the day, because this bike does have a day and night sensor built into the dashboard here, that's how it controls the DRLs and low beam light. So I have it set 80% during the day, 40% at night. I have it set to flash when turn signal is active, and when I hit the high beam, they go to 100% day and night. Pretty cool. They do an inverse flash when the hazards are active. When you hit the high beam 3 times to flash to pass, they will actually go into a strobe pattern, which is incredibly attention grabbing, and they strobe when the horn is active. And this is instantaneous, there is no delay, and it works really well. As we go down to our auxiliary lights 2, these are the 4 bulbs on the outskirts, the full beam. They are set to be totally off during the day. They don't come on with a low beam, but high beam activation, they're at 100% each time. They turn off when the signal is active, that way you can still see a turn signal. And they do the same strobing. They do not flash when the hazards are active. They do have the option for modulation. I haven't tried that yet, but I may see what that's all about. So the sun is going down outside, but with the lights on in this garage, it does fool the bike into thinking it's daytime. So I'll cycle through the modes just so you can see exactly what these lights do and how it interacts with the bike. All right, so they don't come on at all when the bike is off, but when I turn it on, you'll see the bike powers up. And as soon as I start it, there we are. Now I know it's a little loud in here, but currently the bike thinks it is daytime. The lights are on in the garage, and you can see the DRLs are active. Right now, the middle 3 lights are on at 80% brightness. This is how it's going to be running during the day if I just run with the DRLs. With turn signal activation, they will flash with the turn signal. And with high beams, they will alternate, which I think is pretty cool. Now, when I hit the high beams, you can see the sheer amount of light that comes out. That is pretty impressive. Now, the one thing I was worried about was with the turn signal, but I think I have that set now to where the bulb will actually black out. You can see the turn signal again, and then I can cancel it. If I turn the lights off so it thinks it is nighttime, my bike should switch over here. There we go. Now it thinks it's nighttime, and you can see my low beams turn on the bike and the lights dim. So now these are at 40% brightness. How do you think that looks? Same thing, I can hit the turn signal, it'll start flashing 100% brightness. If I hit the horn, they will cycle as well. If I hit the high beams 3 times, you get a strobe pattern, flash to pass. With the high beams on, again, I can hit the turn signal. And it will slowly come back. Overall, I really like these. So I plan to test this out on my road trip. Hopefully I'll get you guys some good data on how well it works on the road in all conditions. No doubt we're gonna hit some weather, no doubt there's gonna be day, night, all sorts of sunlighting conditions, and see how these things truly perform. The way I have them set up is the way I'm gonna leave them for now until something changes. So that's my setup, and like I said, I'll be testing it as we go down to Austin, Texas. If you guys are curious how this thing's gonna turn out and how I like these lights overall, make sure you like this video and subscribe for more content. There'll be a lot more coming. There are definitely 2 notable downsides I see to these lights, at least at the way I have them set up. First is, without a doubt, price. The D7 Pro lights by themselves without the CANsmart system is about $800. So all told, this is a little over $1,000 setup on this bike for just these lights. That's pretty steep. I don't know if it's quite worth it, but I can tell you these are definitely some of the best lights I've ever tried or used, and they're the most convenient, they have the most features, and they are pretty impressive. The other issue I have, slight issue with my setup, is this Multistrada is pretty tight, pretty compact, not a lot of extra room, and I have these lights, because they're so big, mounted to the outside of the crash bars. Now, that doesn't do a lot of good if you put the bike down because it lands on the lights. I've done this before with other lights, and I don't think it will break the lights. I think it will bend the mounts, and I'll have to straighten everything back up, but it does expose them to damage. If you're somebody that drops the bike often or goes off-road and has a higher potential of dropping them, maybe being outside the crash bars is not a good idea. As it stands, they're still within the mirrors and the bags. They don't stick out any wider than any of the other accessories on the bike, so I'm not too terribly worried about them. But they do make a mount, if you do not have the factory fog lights that mount to these brackets, come across here to put them right back here. I don't know what kind of airflow that they would block on this bike because that is one of the main inlets for the radiators. But this is what I've gone with and I think it'll work fine. So as I said, if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. We'll have some more content coming up soon. So far, we've got a couple new accessories to this bike that hopefully we'll be able to test on this road trip, and we're looking forward to it. If you have any accessories you'd like to see or you suggest for the trip, let me know in the comments below. We'll catch you next time.